amount of, a large portion of what I know about criminal justice and criminal justice reform I learned from her. She started that job when I was just about to go into high school, and I would spend my weekends in her office doing her filing and typing up her reports, her recommendations for judges. And that was how I was introduced to that world. My nephew was incarcerated when I was 15. Apologies, my nephew was born when I was 15. He was incarcerated when he was 15. And he's never gotten out. And we don't expect that he will. So the project that I brought to IWalk and Decarcerate Minnesota was spawned because we are having somewhat monthly conversations with the commissioner of the Department of Corrections, Paul Schnell, who was appointed by the governor, and trying to make some changes to the way that probation and parole is rolled out in the state of Minnesota, as well as the way that prisons, well, just the way that prisons are, essentially. I mean, prisons in and of themselves are pretty inhumane, just the idea of them, but there's an understanding that there are times when there needs to be separation, and we would appreciate that separation, including rehabilitation. So the project that I brought is one that addresses the work culture in the Department of Corrections, and the goal is to change the culture from one of punishment to one of separation and rehabilitation, as I said before. So we're working in a space where the Department of Corrections Commissioner Paul says that he shares many of the values that we have in Decarcerate. We're pushing him pretty hard to implement the changes that we can see need to happen. The thing is, top-down change is difficult to sustain. It's difficult to sustain really in any political sphere, but in this particular political sphere, we have tremendous polarization. So no matter what values we have outside of the DOC, or what values Paul has and tries to push downward by changing rules and policies, if you don't feel that individuals who have been convicted of crimes are still human beings and still deserve to be treated as such, you're going to find a way to mistreat them. So it's incredibly important that we address the client-facing individuals and change the culture and atmosphere that they work in an attempt to change their behaviors when they're problematic. So our most immediate goals really, other than making technical violations a complete thing of the past, is to stop the abuses that are currently happening inside the prisons, and the mistreatment and unfair treatment that happens to clients who are on probation specifically on a program called ISR. Which is intensive supervised release. The state on their website describes ISR as a statewide program that provides intensive supervision for the highest risk offenders. Supervision includes 4 face-to-face contacts per week, electronic home monitoring, mandatory work or school, daily curfews, mandatory restitution, and random drug testing. So that's required of everyone. It doesn't matter why you're in prison. The same, those specific requirements are the same, and then there may be additional requirements depending on what you were convicted of. So ISR is a difficult situation. If you're followed by a police officer, for example, you're driving down the road and they follow you for 4 minutes, that's the estimate of how long it will take you to break the law. Doesn't matter if you've ever broken a law before. They know that if they follow you, you're going to break one, and you're going to do it likely within those 4 minutes. So if you can imagine someone who has been in prison, who's released on probation, who's going to now be in this intensive supervised situation where they need to see their agent 4 times a week, and they can't miss work, and they can't be late for work, and they can't have an issue at work. They can't have an argument, they can't get in trouble at work. They can't have issues at their home that might cause them, like undue stress. No one can call the police on them because they made too much noise. They can't drink in many cases, but not all, and they can't use drugs of any kind. They can't be late for curfew. They can't do things like buy cars. They're not allowed to open savings accounts without permission. They can't travel anywhere outside of the area they've been given without permission. So how long do you think it would take to break one of those rules? What if they added the rule that your attitude could be considered a danger to society and could get you sent back to prison?
A day?
That you could roll your eyes at your agent and be sent back to prison. That they have the power to say that that is a dangerous attitude, that you're a danger to society, or they believe you're a danger to society. So people coming out of prison, though, when they're coming out, they're understandably excited and relieved to be coming out of prison. They're coming out to start a new life, have a second chance, if you will. The agents, however, are trained that ISR is punishment. That probation in this form is continued punishment. So if you are coming out thinking this is my new lease on life, this is my chance to reconnect with my family, with my children, this is my chance to find a great job and really enjoy my freedom some, and your agent is saying, well, this is punishment for you. This is what we need you to do to prove that you're worthy to be back in society. You're not worthy yet. You're still being punished. How long do you think it would take for these two attitudes to clash? These two particular perspectives. So, do you think you might roll your eyes once or twice? Just a thought. If you add to this already emotionally complicated situation, the fact that the agent that you're working with, that officer, likely has their own particular implicit bias. They also likely have some sort of trauma that has to do with their job. It could be passive or active trauma. It could have been an argument with the previous client that was in the room with them before you walked in. It could have been a fight that happened, something physical, maybe just shoving that happened 2 days prior, and it could have been something that they actually just witnessed that they weren't even a part of. And as we all know, implicit bias can be any variety of things. Recently, NPR had a podcast talking about women in prison and the fact that women are punished more severely for the same infractions as men. So if you talk back or roll your eyes, that you can be sent to solitary for that, where men are much less likely to be sent to solitary for using curse words or talking back to an officer. Women are significantly more likely to be sent. Additionally, they'll be punished with things like, no feminine products, which is just unbelievably cruel. So, back to the changing perspectives there. When you think about the fact that someone can be part of this ISR program for years, not just days or weeks or months, they can be under this type of intensive supervision for years, the chances of them being sent back just go up exponentially. And oddly, they seem to go up exponentially the closer they get to being released from this program. So this is anecdotal for us. We're asking for data, specific data from the Department of Corrections to prove what we've been hearing from not only the incarcerated or their family members, but from the previous officers who have become whistleblowers and have been good enough to come and talk to us. So, to combat this in the most humane way possible, negotiating right now with the Department of Corrections, with Commissioner Schnell and his staff to create a program, a training program that addresses not only implicit bias, which we all have, but also trauma-informed bias. So it's unfair to expect our officers that have been hurt or traumatized or in some way abused or affected by their jobs to think that they're never going to act out of that pain or those emotions, that they're never going to be unfair or difficult, that the bad apple theory is really just, these few people who do bad things all the time, when the truth is we all are capable of being a bad apple on any given Wednesday where we didn't get coffee and we hit our heads when getting out of bed, and traffic was awful, and we're maybe going through a divorce or taking care of our aging parents or any number of painful things going on in our lives, and we have an incredibly stressful job. So if we want them to be humane and thoughtful and careful with our incarcerated family members, friends, community members, we have to treat them as if they're human beings as well.